And before we get started with this video, remember to get your copy of the Book of Mormon.
So, chapter 18, verse 1. And it came to pass that they did worship the Lord, and did go forth with me, and we did work timbers of curious workmanship. And the Lord did show me from time to time after what manner I should work the timbers of the ship. And so everyone who was murmuring
is now what?
Is doing what now?
Helping.
They're helping.
And what are, not just helping with the ship, but what are they doing that's even more fun?
Worshiping
They're praying.
the Lord.
What was it, Haley? Nice and loud?
Worshiping the Lord.
Worshiping the Lord now. Verse 2.
No, I, Nephi, did not work the timbers after the manner which was learned by men, neither did I build the ship after the manner of men, but I did build it after the manner which the Lord had shown unto me. Wherefore it was not after the manner of men. Can you get my glasses?
Is this the first time, are there other examples in the scriptures where God told people how to build things?
Yeah.
Like who?
Solomon.
Temple of Solomon.
Is it Noah?
Noah's Ark. Yeah. So God doesn't just give spiritual information. He'll even give like temporal or worldly information to people if it'll help them accomplish the work.
Because he said, I'm not going to do that in the manner of men, like how other people do it. Like we don't think about the gospel as other people do.
I see what you're saying. So the world might say you should follow God this way, but we're not doing it the way the world says. We do it the way the Lord reveals to his prophets. And that's actually true. A lot of churches just go along with what society is saying, and they'll kind of change their beliefs based on society, based on the world. But God doesn't base the truth on what people say. He gives revelation to who?
And his prophets.
His prophets, right? So,
and then we follow what the prophets say.
Exactly. So we're not following God the way after the manner of the world, or the way the world does. We're doing it after the manner the Lord wants us to follow him. Very good. And I, Nephi, did go into the mount oft, and I did pray oft unto the Lord, wherefore the Lord showed unto me great things. So Nephi just prayed once a year.
No.
Once a day.
No.
Maybe once a day. When did he pray?
20 times a minute.
20 times a minute. Wow, that's pretty often, right? And did he say his prayers where there's a lot of hustle and bustle, or did he go to a quiet place to do
He wants a quiet place.
quiet place? Why do you think he did that?
So he can like have more time with the Lord.
Exactly, and he can really focus on
He
what
could
the Spirit is
focus.
saying. How does the Spirit talk to us? Is it a loud booming voice, a voice of thundering?
No.
No.
It's a whisper.
It's a whisper, right? The Lord might talk to the wicked in a thundering voice, like we saw with Laman and Lemuel in the last chapter.
You need to be in a quiet place so then you can
Hear it. Yeah. And it says that through those prayers, those frequent prayers, and going to those quiet places to pray, the Lord showed unto him great things.
And it came to pass after I had finished the ship, according to the word of the Lord, my brethren beheld that it was good, and that the workmanship thereof was exceedingly fine. Wherefore they did humble themselves again before the Lord.
Yeah, they were realizing,
It's a
okay,
good thing.
I know Nephi can't build something this amazing. He must have what?
Pray.
Prayed and had what help?
The Lord.
The Lord's help, because they just saw, wow, we've built this ship, and we didn't know how to build a ship. Clearly the Lord is with us.
And it came to pass that the voice of the Lord came unto my father, that we should arise and go down into the ship. So the ship is done.
Time
And
to
now
use
what?
it. Yep.
Listen
That's
to
when the
this
Lord-
still small voice.
Calls us to do something. He wants us,
To do it now, or
To-
as quickly as possible.
right. He wants us to
ASAP.
follow through, or he just wants us to sit back when the Lord tells us to do things.
To do it.
To do
ASAP.
it, right?
I thought it meant like you know how he said to like go, it's time to go into the ship?
Mm-hmm.
On Sunday it's time for us to go to church.
But I just want to stay here in my comfy house. I don't want to go into the spiritual ship of church.
And
Asking.
Yeah,
roll
that's
your
where-
way to the celestial kingdom.
That's right.
And it came to pass that on the morrow, after we had prepared all things, much fruit and meat from the wilderness, and honey in abundance and provisions, according to that which the Lord had commanded us, we did go down into the ship with all our loading and our seeds, and whatsoever things we had brought with us. every one according to his age. Wherefore we did all go down into the ship with our wives and our children.
And it also shows that when the Lord asks us to do something, He still wants us to think, right? We still need to prepare, we still need to be thoughtful, we need to be wise. God doesn't tell us every little thing to do. He says, this is what I want. But He still wants us to think for ourselves. And it sounds like they did a lot of planning, like, okay, what do we want to take, guys? What's going to be helpful for us? They didn't just sit and wait for God to say everything. God gave them direction, but they also had to think for themselves also in accomplishing the work and preparing themselves for this journey they were about to go on. And when there's something spiritual that the Lord wants us to do, how do we prepare? Let's say we're supposed to share the gospel with others. What do we need to do to prepare ourselves for that?
How to prepare for mission.
If you're going to teach someone the gospel, what do you got to know first?
The gospel.
The gospel, right?
If we already knew about the gospel, we should just practice teaching on our family.
Right, but you got to learn it.
I have to learn it.
Collecting cash to actually go to your mission.
Saving up for it. Absolutely. No, that's a great example, right? Saving up for your mission. So all these things show that God asks us to do things, but we need to prepare ourselves, be thoughtful, and really be wise in how we accomplish God's work.
Like when we go to church,
With our
family.
parents and our children, right?
Family.
Yeah. Do we want to go on the spiritual ship by ourselves, or do we want our family with us?
Family.
We want our family with us. Absolutely. Verse 7. And now my father had begat 2 sons in the wilderness. You know, if Sarai was standing over his shoulder when he wrote this, she would have been like, oh, your father begat 2 sons in the wilderness, did he? And that's when Nephi would have scratched that out. And my mother begat 2 sons. But I guess she wasn't watching when Nephi wrote this. I wonder how Sarai felt when she read this chapter.
Soraya, read this chapter.
Well, I mean, it depends when he wrote it. If he wrote this later on in his life, and it was just retelling the story of everything that happened, Sarai might not have been alive with us.
Like,
But I'm sure she would have had a reaction to this.
it wasn't your father, it wasn't me.
Your father, really?
Did
Is
you-
that who did that? Right. The elder was called Jacob and the younger Joseph. So Jacob and Joseph were Nephi's older brothers.
No, younger.
Younger, very good.
Jacob was just older than
Can
Jacob.
you imagine? I mean, they were bearing children while
Traveling
nomads.
In the middle of nowhere, like you
In
don't
the
know where you're
wilderness.
going.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was pretty-
And it shows that they were, both the men and women were given the same strength to complete this journey. It shows that the Lord is with us. And when there's things that feel like it's too much, the Lord can give us strength to accomplish the things that He wants us to do. Now, if it's just something I want to do and the Lord doesn't necessarily want me to do it, is He going to give me the strength to do those things?
No.
Probably not, right? But if I'm doing the things He asked me to do, what is He going to give me?
Strength.
Strength to do it. Absolutely.
And it passed after we had all gone down into the ship and had taken with us our provisions, things which had been commanded us, we did put forth into the sea. We were driven forth before the wind towards the promised land.
So got in the ship and see where the wind blows, pretty much.
What is our promised land? What did you say the celestial kingdom?
That's right. And we had to leave heaven and embark on a journey to come where?
Here.
Here to earth. And this is our journey through the wilderness of life. And we're supposed to follow the guidance of who? God and Jesus Christ, just like they
We're
did.
trying to journey to the celestial kingdom.
Exactly.
Follow Jesus.
And that's actually a good point, Evan. What is the spiritual boat we all climb into in order to move closer to the celestial kingdom? What's our spiritual ship?
The gospel?
The gospel. And where do we go to all follow
The church.
The church, right? We all congregate there, we all gather into there because it's carrying us and taking us to the celestial kingdom, the promised land for us. Okay, do we know what's going to happen in the future?
No.
No, the Lord's just saying, go here and I'll give you more when you get there. And that's what we're doing. We go to church, we learn more, and the Lord guides us. But sometimes, even when we're on the ship, we're not always making the right choices, as we're about to see here, verse 9.
And after we had been driven forth before the wind for the space of many days, behold, my brethren and the sons of Ishmael, and also their wives, began to make themselves merry, insomuch that they began to dance and to sing and to speak with much rudeness. Yea, even that they did forget by what power they had been brought thither. Yea, they were lifted up unto exceeding rudeness.
But is it bad to have fun with your family?
No.
You gotta dance around, sing some songs. Is that bad?
No, but you shouldn't be like talking rudely.
Ah, yes. What was the bad thing they were doing?
They were talking rudely and like
Right.
making fun of people.
Yeah, and did they think that was fun?
Yeah.
Did they think that was funny? But did everybody else think that was funny?
No.
No, because they were being mean. It's okay to have a party, but you don't want your partying to get to the point where you're doing things that you shouldn't.
On a ship that we're trying to have fun and then whoa.
Yeah, they're starting, and they thought it was funny to start speaking.
Road is not funny.
Yeah, and you'll see people who will like make fun of people because they think it's funny, but do we make fun of people?
No. And smoking's not good.
Oh, we'll keep that in mind.
It's
Thank you.
And I, Nephi, began to fear exceedingly, lest the Lord should be angry with us and smite us, because of our iniquity, that we should be swallowed up in the depths of the sea. Wherefore I, Nephi, began to speak to them with much stubbornness. But behold, they were angry with me, saying, We will not that our young folks so there shall be a ruler over us.
Not surprisingly, Nephi's like, guys, cool it down. You're starting to take this too far. The Lord's going to be unhappy with us if you keep acting like this. Let's pull it back a little bit. And they're like, who are you to talk to? Oh, big boss man Nephi is coming up here again, trying to
You're the
tell us
little
what
brother.
to do.
Don't tell us what to do.
Right.
So they were like, We're older than you. We get to tell you what you should do.
Right. We're just having some fun here. Nephi, relax. Calm down. Stop throwing such a fit. Well, the Lord saves the righteous and destroys the wicked, right? Nephi knows that the promised land is only given to people who are following God. So if they're not following God, they're not going to be able to get to the promised land, and they're going to be left in the middle of the sea, right? So Nephi's like, I don't want that.
Why are they going to the promised land if they're kind of wicked?
Well, up to this point, were they repenting of their sins?
Yeah.
They were.
Well, but
They
then
were.
they
Heavenly Father had told Lehi to take his family and Laman and Lemuel.
It was all part of the plan. And it came to pass that Laman and Lemuel did take me and bind me with cords. And they did treat me with much harshness. Nevertheless, the Lord did suffer it, that he might show forth his power, unto the fulfilling of his word which he had spoken concerning the wicked. Now, we read in the previous chapter that when they went to grab Nephi, what happened?
were shocked.
Before they,
That he told them.
Nephi commanded him, do not touch me or you'll wither as a reed. And later was told, go and shock your brothers. So we saw in the previous chapter that God protected Nephi from this attack from Laman and Lemuel. But now here they are trying to grab him again, and does God stop them this time?
No.
No, and Nephi's explaining why God didn't stop him this time. Why didn't he?
So God can show his power.
Exactly. So
So they can like start believing?
So Nephi realized that by suffering these things in that moment, God was going to use that situation to show his power. So it shows that, does God always protect us?
No.
No, he allows bad things to happen to righteous people so that his judgment against the wicked can be true. But if the wicked never did anything wrong, then you have these wicked people in their hearts who aren't getting judgment of God. So by allowing these things to happen, God can have that justice on the wicked, and he can save the righteous from their sufferings.
And it came to pass that after they had bound me insomuch that I could not move, the compass which had been prepared of the Lord did cease to work.
So what happened when they bound him?
Because
The
there was no
compass
faith.
stopped working.
The compass stopped working.
Because you need faith for it to work.
Right.
You need faith and you need to be following the commandments, which Laman and Lemuel were not. Wherefore they knew not whither they should steer the ship, insomuch that there arose a great storm, yea, a great and terrible tempest, and we were driven back upon the waters for the space of 3 days. And they began to be frightened exceedingly, lest they should be drowned in the sea. Nevertheless, they did not loose me. How long did they have them bound?
3 days.
So they were in this storm for 3 days.
His wrist didn't move to the sword.
And did they know where to go?
No.
No. And they were frightened, but what happened? Even though they were afraid,
And they still left him tied.
They still left him tied.
Can you imagine your wrists and your ankles being tied around a pole
That's for 3 days.
for 3 days?
Well, for 3 days, and not only that, but the ship is moving, which
Moving
means
around, so your arms are moving
arms
in
are
the
moving.
ropes.
and the rope, so you're
For
probably getting like
hours
rope
and days.
burns on your
Imagine this for
Actually,
hours and
yeah.
for
days.
3 days.
How much pain he would be in. And his brothers just left him. Let's see, let's continue.
And on the 4th day, which we had been driven back, the tempest began to be exceedingly strong.
So
What is a tempest?
the
A
really
storm.
bad storm. Did it start getting better, or was it getting worse?
It's getting worse.
And this is another example of just how more and more wicked they were becoming. And it came to pass that we were about to be swallowed up in the depths of the sea. And after we had been driven back upon the waters for the space of 4 days, my brethren began to see that the judgments of God were upon them, and that they must perish, save that they should repent of their iniquities. Wherefore they came unto me, and loosed the bands which were upon my wrists. And behold, they had swollen exceedingly, and also mine ankles were much swollen, and great was the soreness thereof. He could probably barely even move his hands and his wrists.
So they did get swollen?
Oh yeah,
That was kind of
oh yeah, and a lot of pain.
Nevertheless, I did look unto my God, and I did praise him all the day long.
What?
And I did not murmur against the Lord because of mine afflictions.
What?
As long as you're reading your prayers and reading your prayers and saying your scriptures,
There you go.
you'll be fine. I think what helped him have this kind of faith is that he knew God could stop Laman and Lemuel at any point. He could shock them again if he wanted. So the fact that God wasn't saving him, Nephi knew that it must be according to God's will that he go through these things. So his attitude was, Lord, if I have to sit on this piece of timber and suffer
What's timber?
in order for your work to be accomplished, then so be it. And now guys, think about that for a second. What does this represent? If I have to sit tied to a piece of wood in order to accomplish your work, I'm willing to do it.
That's
What is
Jesus
this?
on the cross.
What does it sound like?
Jesus
Yeah,
on the cross.
right. Yeah, Jesus allowed himself to be put on a beam, on a piece of timber, on a piece of wood, knowing that it was God's will that that happened. And it was through that that God could perform his greatest work of all, which is to save us from our sins. And so Nephi knew that if he had to suffer in this much, much smaller way, that it was according to God's will that his work could be made manifest. And we'll see kind of how this all plays out. But we see the parallels of how all these things we're reading testify of who? Jesus Christ. Right? And so like Jesus, he suffered a lot, but didn't what?
Murmur.
Murmur and complain. And Nephi was following the example of who?
God.
Jesus Christ in this moment.
Now my father Lehi had said many things unto them, and also unto the sons of Ishmael. But behold, they did breathe out much threatenings against anyone that should speak for me. And my parents, being stricken in years, and having suffered much grief because of their children, they were brought down, yea, even upon their sick beds.
So for those 3 days that Nephi was tied up, what was the family trying to get Laman and Lemuel to do?
Untie him!
Untie him.
And
And what did Laman and Lemuel do?
No!
And it wasn't just Laman and Lemuel, who else?
Sons of Ishmael.
All the sons of Ishmael.
Yeah,
And
they were
then
little.
finally, on the 4th day,
Not because their hearts were softened, but because they realized they were what?
Gonna die.
Only because they realized they were going to die.
And they didn't know where to go because the compass
Compass
wasn't working.
They didn't do it for
what is
other people's benefit. They did it for their own benefit. Where's Sam in this?
Sam was one of the ones speaking for Nephi, but every time somebody did, they'd get threatened. Oh, you want to get tied up too? You want us to
get
hurt
thrown off
you
the
too?
ship or something?
Right.
Who knows what they said?
because of the grief and much sorrow and the iniquity of my brethren, they were brought near, even to be carried out of this time to meet their God. Yea, their gray hairs were about to be brought down, and the lie low in the dust. Yea, even they were near to be cast with sorrow into a watery grave.
And Jacob and Joseph also being young having need of much nourishment, were grieved because of the afflictions of their mother. So it was hard. Sarai was so sick and sad that it was hard for her to take care of, those young kids, Jacob and Joseph. And also my wife, with her tears and her prayers, and also my children. So Nephi had kids at this point who were on the ship also. Did not soften the hearts of my brethren that they would lose me. So for days, people were pleading and crying and getting sicker and worse. And would Lemuel let Nephi go?
No.
No.
Not even seeing like their nephews and nieces like suffering because seeing
Let
their
my dad go,
tied up.
stop
Like, let
it.
my dad go.
Yeah.
Imagine they might have been like small kids like you guys, and they're like, Uncle Laman, Uncle Lemuel, can you please untie my dad? And not even that.
And there was nothing save it where the power of God, which threatened them with destruction, could soften their hearts. Wherefore, when they saw that they were about to be swallowed up in the depths of the sea, they repented of the thing which they had done, insomuch that they loosed me.
And it came to pass after they had loosed me, behold, I took the compass, and it did work whither I desired it. And it came to pass that I prayed unto the Lord, and after I had prayed, the winds did cease, and the storm did cease, and there was a great calm.
This is for Jesus.
Nice. So that's what they saw after the storm passed.
Right?
And it came to pass that I, Nephi, did guide the ship, that we sailed again towards the promised land.
Yeah, who guides the ship on Earth today, guys? No, who on
Who's
the Earth guides the
representative?
ship?
The prophet.
The prophet. And it came to pass that after we had sailed for the space of many days, we did arrive at the promised land. Do you think they were pretty relieved when they saw that promised land?
Yeah,
I bet they were. And we went forth upon the land, and did pitch our tents, and we did call it the promised land. Wow. Verse 24.
And it came to pass that we did begin to till the earth, we began to plant seeds. Yea, we did put all our seeds into the earth, which we had brought from the land of Jerusalem. It came to pass that they did grow exceedingly, wherefore we were blessed in abundance.
And so they got to work, they started tilling the earth and establishing themselves now in the promised land. 25.
And it came to pass that we did find upon the land of promise, as we journeyed in the wilderness, that there were beasts in the forest of every kind, both the cow and the ox, and the ass and the horse, and the goats and the wild goats, and all manner of wild animals which were for the use of men. And we did find all manner of ore, both of gold and of silver and of copper.
And as a side note, guys, you might find people who kind of argue this verse.
see this picture. Why?
Because they haven't found scientifically any
I
remains
do,
of
how does
horses
that?
from this time period. Like fossils of horses from this time period, like 600 years before Christ. There's fossils of horses from like 2,000 years ago, but not anything from this period. So they're like, oh, Joseph Smith messed up. He said the word horse, but there were no horses here. Well, again, they came from Jerusalem and were unfamiliar with the animals that lived here. So any four-legged animal, they would have called it a word that they were familiar with. Horses actually were very common in the
It could have
Middle
been
East.
it could have been a mule.
It could have been a mule. There was this, like, I forget what it's called. There was like this weird horse-like animal that was here in the Americas roughly around this time. But if they'd never seen it before, they would have just called it what it looked like, which to them was probably what?
A horse.
A horse. Or
It's
it could have
probably
been
a
an
zebra.
actual horse.
Probably a zebra.
And the horses that were here might have gone almost extinct, but there might have still been a few left, and we just don't have any fossils for them, right? So there's different explanations.
That's so cute.
All right, well, guys, tune in for our next chapter, chapter 19.
Study the scriptures, give us a huge thumbs up, ring that bell, click that subscribe button.